A deal on Dickens, who could resist? A stack of Austen, warmly kissed. Golden Age crime tales twist and turn, every page a treasure to learn. Books keep coming home with me, piles so tall they're all I see. Turn a page and sail the sea, reading always feels so free.
Hi, my name is Talia. Welcome to Talia Nerds Out. Just a few more books to show in a book haul. My last intended book haul that I recorded ended up being a book review unintentionally, so let's actually try to make this a book haul. First things I'm going to show are my non-English history related ones. First one here is Giorgio Vasari, The Lives of the Artists. Last year, I read the Collector of Lives, which is a biography about Giorgio Vasari. I really enjoyed that. I look forward to reading this. This is an Oxford World's classic. I know going in that he is incredibly biased towards Michelangelo and I think Florentine artists in particular. So I know about his biases going in. And I know that he is a Michelangelo fanboy. So, but I did enjoy reading about Vasari in particular. And I'm glad that I did so before heading into this, because I think having the extra context of the fact that Vasari himself was quite a talented artist is nice to have going into this book whenever I do happen to read it. Oh, and this one came with its own library card in the back, which I might make use of. And this came from Duquesne University, the Gumberg Library. So got this one. And also, I did appreciate, I think they already have written down on here the Dewey Decimal Code, although usually the Oxford World's Classics include that anyway. Yeah, I mean, it's already in here because it's a Oxford World Classic, but I appreciate that it's written so I don't have to like go and hunt it down within that little front page there. Then I have, this is Jacques Le Goff's Must We Divide History into Periods? And I can't remember how I came upon his work. I want to say I was looking into something else, and then he came up. And it acknowledges both the arbitrary nature of historical periodization and its necessity. Le Goff argued until his death for an appreciation of the fundamental unity of what is normally divided into the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. This looks like it's a pretty short book. Let's see how big the text is. Not a ridiculous sized text. I won't be reading this year necessarily, but I mean, looking at the size of the book as well as the size of the text, it shouldn't be too long of a read just because the pages are like almost half sized. So, and it's not like it has small margins. It's decent sized margins. Not anything, huge, but so I just thought that this would be an interesting read, if nothing else. Let's see, what else? Oh, the other one that is not English history is, although, let me see, is this actually English? This might actually be, okay, actually this would be, yeah, this would actually be English. Oh, well, I'm covering it right now anyway, and then I'll go into the earlier English history. So this is Nightingale's Nuns and the Crimean War by Terry Tastard. I had waited quite a while before getting this. Thankfully, I had done a buyback with Thrift Books, and so I had a gift card from them. And that, when I do that with the buyback, I allow myself to get a book that I normally wouldn't, simply because I wouldn't be willing to spend that money if it wasn't like extra money made by selling books back. So I was then able to pick up this one, which at this point, I guess it was fairly recently released, so it's still on its own pretty expensive if you don't have like a gift card or something. When was this released? Let's see if it tells me. Okay, yeah. The paperback was published in 2024. It was first published in Britain in 2023. So this is quite a new book. What I find interesting, okay, I'm going to read the back to you. This is what pulled me in. Infectious disease, wounded and dying soldiers, a shortage of supplies were the daily realities faced by the nuns who nursed with Florence Nightingale in the Crimean War. Something I actually don't know a whole lot about, the Crimean War. Crimean War? I've heard it might be Crimean War. I'm probably mispronouncing that terribly. Anyway, this study documents their involvement in the conflict and how the nuns bore witness to the effects of carnage and official indifference, in many cases traumatized as a result. This book reflects on the initiative and courage shown by the nuns and how their actions can be viewed as a part of a wider movement among women in the mid-19th century to find fulfillment and assert control in their own lives. Nightingale's Nuns and the Crimean War also sheds light on how critics at the time accused many of the nuns of being agents of the Catholic Church who preyed on vulnerable soldier patients. There was a campaign in Parliament to regulate and control convents. Terry Tastard shows how the nuns attempted to neutralize this anti-Catholicism, as well as charting the participation of Anglican nuns who had just begun an astonishing project to revive the religious life in the Church of England. Finally, the book reveals new insights into Florence Nightingale's relationships with nuns who nursed with her in Crimea and how these experiences impacted Nightingale's own perspective. This was a take on covering Nightingale that I had not seen before, and I found this direction to be very interesting. The only other book I saw covering this was something put out by Ignatius Press, which is a Catholic publication. And I don't believe it was a smaller book as I recall, and it might have even, I can't remember if it was even aimed at adults or if it was aimed at like a slightly younger audience. I only glanced at it. This was the book I had myself, I was like laser focused on because of the point it made about Florence Nightingale's particular relationship and dealing with the whole of England and the focus on the anti-Catholicism and all that. This seemed like it covered a bit of a wider, covered more areas in this book. Wow, I don't think it's going to shortchange any of them. Like I said, I think it's a bit of a longer book than the Ignatius Press book, but this is the only other book that I could find on the topic. Like when I would search for this book to see if I could find it for a less expensive price, the Ignatius Press book would come up a lot of times instead, but nothing else. So I don't think that there's many books on this specific topic, which intrigues me. And I might eventually pick up the Ignatius Press book or, see if it's available to borrow on Kindle, even though it's not really my preference. I prefer to read physical, but whatever happens to be available. Ignatius Press book isn't that expensive. I would probably be able to find that for a steal if I really wanted to. But this was the one I really wanted. And so when I got the chance to pick it up, I did. So yeah, this one looks really good. I'm not sure when I'll read this. I'm not sure if I should read the Florence Nightingale biography I have first and then read this one. I kind of want to read this one first, but we'll see. Okay, now my other books that I picked up in English history, and this comes from earlier time periods. So I think that I will first, actually this one I'm not sure if it's just England, so I'll pull this one first. This is one that I ended up picking up. Oh, I think this is from a different point of time where I sold some books back and I had a gift card from Thrift Books because my various family members had different books that they needed to unhaul, and they just, because they really just wanted to unhaul it, they let me keep the gift card credit. So I was like, sweet, that's great. I ended up using it to, I think it almost completely covered this book, which is great because this is another one that's a fairly recent release and was out of my price range otherwise. And this one is a 2024 release. The Monastic World, a 1200-year history by Andrew Josticki? I can't say that. Gonna hold that up a little closer. So it says the first truly panoramic history of Christian monasticism in the Middle Ages. And that's a quote by Scott Bruce. Just the idea sounded really cool to me. Now, I don't think there's really much in the way of pictures, which kind of surprised me. Okay, there are pictures, but they're black and white, which is a little bit of an interesting choice in my mind because with monasticism, you kind of expect like these really nice colored pictures, or at least I did. But that's not what I picked up the book for necessarily. I'm just really interested in topic matter. And this was another book like the Florence Nightingale book, where I waited a long time until I could get some sort of gift card to cover it, because otherwise I would not have been able to pick it up for quite a while. Stay. Next, I think I will talk about, well, this one, because I've actually already read this one before. I read this one last year, but I listened to it, I think, the audiobook. And I remember that I really enjoyed listening to it. I want to read it at some point physically because I do absorb better that way. So this is Thomas Asbridge's The Greatest Knight, The Remarkable Life of William Marshall, The Power Behind 5 English Thrones. And I remember his life being really interesting. And I look forward to reading this again and getting even more out of it the second time around because I will be reading it physically. Yeah. I haven't read anything else by this author. Then next, this one was one that I picked up because I saw it recommended on the Historathon Discord. There's a reason I don't go there as often, that often. It's a very bad place. But this is a song of Simon de Montfort, England's first revolutionary. And this is by Sophie Therese Ambler. It was recommended as being quite good. I do have also the book written by Ian Mortimer. I'm interested. Now, I haven't read that one either. I'll probably start with the Ian Mortimer one since I believe that's an older book. Let's see. How old is this one? Yeah, I think that would be an older book because this is first published in 2019, but the paperback was in 2020. I know the one by Ian Mortimer has been around quite a bit longer than that, so I'll probably read that one first. And then I look forward to seeing what else Therese can bring to that conversation, what point of view she'll have. Then next, I was trying to fill out my Helen Castor books. So the other one I have is Blood and Roses, One Family Struggle and Triumph During the Tumultuous War of the Roses. And this particularly focuses on the, Paston family. And I want to say I have some books that cover the Pastons, but it's an older set of books. But I can't remember the name of the authors. I think it's a husband-wife duo, and I want to say they have a little bit about them, but I'm not completely sure. And I want to say that the records that they cover might be later, but I'd have to find that book, and I don't feel like getting up right now. But yeah, so I like the idea of seeing the War of the Roses from this point of view. It's not a point of view that I have seen the War of the Roses from before. I've seen ones that talk about the women of the War of the Roses. I've seen ones that focus just, War of the Roses, like straight on, trying to do a little more, panoramic view. So this is very much focused on the point of view of this family and how it affected them. I'm sure it's going to hit everything else as well, but there must be a good amount of documentation for her to feel like she can focus specifically on this family. And that interests me. Now, I referenced this book when I did my dual review of Helen Castor's The Eagle and the Heart, along with Ian Mortimer's Henry IV. And I referenced Elizabeth I by Helen Castor, but I had also seen it written down on Goodreads as Elizabeth, the Insecurities of Elizabeth I. Now, that full title is not on here, but that is what I saw it listed as. Okay, and I'm sorry. The inside is actually the title I saw it listed as. Elizabeth I, A Study in Insecurity. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And there should be quite a bit in the way of sources for Elizabeth I. It's not a very long book. It's not even 100 pages before the endnotes. After the endnotes, it is at 101 pages, and then you hit your further reading recommendations. So it's a very short book. If I have time, maybe I'll get it in this year. I'll slide it in, my possibilities for Q3. Actually, I'm going to do that now. But if I don't get it, it's fine. I can get it in a different year. But this is such a quick read. And it's an interesting way of looking at Elizabeth I. I feel like sometimes Elizabeth I gets very much lionized. And to look at her from this point of view, that's intriguing to me. Okay, next is Richard III, England's most controversial king. And I know that Richard III is someone who, he has his, I think they call themselves the Ricardians, of like the pro-Richard III people, and then the ones who are like anti-Richard III and think that he killed his nephews in the Tower or had them killed. I mean, I do believe he probably did, but the only book that I've read focused on him specifically, or focused on that specifically, was Alison Weir's The Princess in the Tower, and that was many years ago when I first began choosing to read English history. So many, many years ago. It was one of the earliest Alison Weir books that I read. I think close on the heels of what might have been my first Alison Weir, which would have been The Children of Henry VIII. But from what I understand, it's supposed to be a very measured account, and that even though it's not necessarily pro-Richard III, it's supposed to be a fair account of him. So I am looking forward to that, because I have only looked at him through the lens of the one book, which was The Princess in the Tower, which, of course, is going to see him mostly through the lens of the boy's likely murderer. So I don't know a whole lot about him prior to that. I know some things here and there based off of other things I've read about War of the Roses, but War of the Roses isn't something that I've read extensively into. It's a little bit late in medieval era for me to, like, I usually like earlier in medieval era, or I prefer straight on Tudor. I haven't done a whole lot with the War of the Roses itself, and I do intend to rectify that, but it does mean I have a bit of, I don't have as firm of a understanding of this era. I mean, I understand it well enough, but I generally will have most, like, patches that I understand, and then usually having just mainly one author's point of view in a specific area. I can't even remember whose book on War of the Roses that I read, the more general book. I don't remember if it was Alison Weir or if it was somebody else. It might have been Mark Morris's. I can't really remember, because it's been a while. The only one I truly can say, oh yeah, I did this one for War of the Roses, is when I did the one for The Princess in the Tower. And I don't think the House of Beaufort went far enough. Let's see. Oh, and also when I did the Winter King by, is it Thomas Penn who wrote that? It's the same one who wrote The Brothers York. When I read that, they went into the War of the Roses as well. But again, that's going to be more from that, like, Henry Tudor's point of view. But let's see. I want to say that you start leading into, you start leading into War of the Roses with the House of Beaufort. And this was another one that I had to listen to. This is one that I've had. I got it earlier in the year. I listened to it and I tried to read along with Kindle, but my Kindle was actually missing sections. So I want to reread this. That's why I had to flip through it, because I couldn't remember how far the book went, because I had to listen to it instead. But I believe this one does dip at least a little bit into War of the Roses. But I feel like I'm kind of lacking in that area of knowledge. So this will help fill in some of those gaps, Richard III. As will this one. Okay, then I have the Bayeux Tapestry. So the first one is Bayeux Tapestry in the embroidery story, and it's supposed to look at it from, it gives you, okay, a kind of replica and kind of then this fancy text. But if you are having trouble reading that, if you, I think it's if you turn the page, let's see, there's a point where they actually give you the easier to read. So they have the fancy text, and I think it's, oh yeah, they'll give you, if you go back like you would for endnotes or something, you can read it in the more clear text. But they didn't want to ruin the prettiness of the pages. But if you really look, you can actually read this prettier fancy text. But they wanted to give a colored, more clear view of what's going on the Bayeux Tapestry. And it goes into how it would be made, who commissioned it, that kind of thing. I just sort of glanced through it. It says, after extensive research about who the embroiderers of the Bayeux Tapestry were, Jan Messent has compiled a fascinating and colorful account which will help to place this famous embroidery in a plausible context. This study is essential reading for anyone wishing to know more about the Bayeux Tapestry embroiderers. This is another possible option for Framed in September, so I might put it over here by the Frederick Remington book. There we go. Also, part of the reason why I wanted that as well is my Bayeux Tapestry book that I've had a while doesn't have any colored pictures. I actually found that really disappointing. It's only black and white, and it's not really the best quality black and white photos either. I want to show this, say I showed this like a year or two ago, and I was very disappointed. But at least I have the actual story about the Bayeux Tapestry in here in more detail than is available here. And then this one is an archaeological study of the Bayeux Tapestry, landscapes, buildings, and places. So it puts it in context. I guess they're going to look at what's in the background and then saying, okay, well, this is where you can tell where people were based off of what you see in the pictures. So this could be interesting. A lot of times I have trouble putting things in different, where it was in real space because I don't picture things that way. I'm very person oriented in my reading, and that's why authors like Agatha Christie tend to work for me, because she also did things very much in the same way. She's like, details are boring. I'll add them as they need to be added. If they're not necessary, I won't. People's imaginations can essentially fill in the blanks. So if there's too much description, my brain tends to skip over them because I don't really picture things that way. My writing's much the same way. Is it necessary? No. Okay, it's not being put down. So something like this could be useful for putting things in an idea of where they are, because once they start telling me that people are going in this direction or that direction, I'm just like, okay. Can't really picture where that is, but that's great. Now, I've seen enough of maps, just various different maps of that time period to get a general idea of at least something of where larger land masses are. But geography never has been particularly a strong point for me. Part of it, like I said, because I just don't tend to be very description, location focused in my reading. So this might help, and also maybe be helpful to a certain extent within my reading of other historical works that are set in medieval time in England. Okay, this is an old book. Let me just put this behind you guys without hitting the camera. Come on. Okay, there we go. Then this is a two-parter, and I got these. Sorry, something in my eye. I got these like new, I want to say, and I got a decent price off of it. I first heard, I can't listen to the Medievalist, anything like on their YouTube channel. I can't look at their, the free aspect of their Patreon, because I don't do their paid Patreon. A friend of mine from college got me onto them. He's in huge trouble, and yes, but his fault. But through the Medievalist YouTube channel, I heard an interview about this book, part 1, part 2 of Henry III. And what interested me when the author was talking about it was that he had a lot of documentation to work from. He said it was more than you normally would have during that era. So like there was a lot more in the way of actual quotes to work from, that you just had a better idea of what life looked like for this specific king. And I was like, oh, that's great. I need to. He wrote this apparently like over double digits years. I can't remember how many he said. So this is part 1 and part 2 of Henry III. The rise to power and personal rule, 1207 to 1258. And then reform, rebellion, civil war, and settlement, 1258 to 1272. I don't remember a whole ton about Henry III. Yeah, other than the fact that I thought he was the one who was overthrown by Simon de Montfort. So it's like I have memories about him, but more of it's like towards the end of it. Sometimes I muddle him. Like sometimes I'll get like a mixture of Edward II and would have been Henry the, what number? The one during the War of the Roses, that Henry. Sometimes I'll end up smushing Edward II with that Henry of the War of the Roses together when I'm thinking of Henry III. And so I know that a lot of times I'll kind of misremember things about him, and I look forward to reading more. Like I said, I find it very intriguing that we have a bunch of documentation about him, and that all the effort that went into writing about him. Obviously, this is not something that I'd be reading all in one year unless I plan on reading more than quarter 2 for this. I would have to be like, okay, this is an all year round read, because otherwise there's no way I'd be getting both of these books in 1 year. Not if I'm planning to only do for quarter 2. I mean, heck, these books are huge. Getting one of them in for quarter 2 without getting anything, with getting other things read will be a challenge, because all things, including footnotes and everything included, this first book is 763 pages. The second book is 711 pages. And there are pictures inside, which look like they're quite pretty. And I don't know if I should read this. No, I'm not going to wait to read either my Simon de Montfort books before I read this, because otherwise I could be waiting a while to read those if I wait for these, because these are humongous. But yeah, that's it for those book reviews. Not book reviews, that book haul. I don't know why I said book review. Probably because I've done a couple book reviews without intending to. Hope that you got something enjoyable out of that. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you again for the next video. God bless. Bye.
Books keep coming home with me, piles so tall they're all I see. Turn a page and sail the sea. Reading always feels so free.